You want to pay yourself a dividend in Xero? Watch in for a demonstration on how.
Okay, in this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to pay yourself dividends in Xero. So you can start off from your dashboard page, which will look a little bit like this. The first thing to note is that there isn't an account for dividends in your default chart of accounts. So we're going to have to create one before we can pay ourselves dividends. So we're going to click on accounting and then chart of accounts. Okay, once we're on there, we're going to click on equity. We're going to look for a number code which is free. I'm going to click add account. So in this case, we're going to go with 965. Account type is going to be equity. And let's call it dividends paid. And then click save. Okay, once this is complete, then we're now going to do a manual journal. So we're going to click on accounting, manual journals, and click new journal. I'm going to start by giving it a description, put the day's date in. Now, the best way to do it is we're going to basically add the dividend to the director's loan account. That means that the director then is able to withdraw that dividend as they please in their own time. So two different account codes we're going to use are dividends paid, which is the one we just created, and then director's loan account. Okay, so as with all manual journals, basically the amount in the debit column needs to equal the amount in the credit column. So basically what we have is, as with accounting transactions, we have two different transactions. One will be a debit and one will be a credit. So in this case, because the director's loan account is going to increase a liability, it's a credit. So in this case, let's say the dividend we're going to pay is £500. So in the UK, that is the amount of the annual tax-free dividend allowance. And so any dividend higher than that will result in a personal tax liability. Obviously, if you're watching this and you're in a different country, the rules will be different. Okay, so basically you'll see there's two corresponding transactions. There's a debit of £500 for dividends paid, and then a credit of £500 in the director's loan account. And the date, I've used the day's date of being 1st of June 2026. Now I'm going to click post. Okay, now let's just check it's worked. So let's go on to accounting, balance sheet. Okay, so on the balance sheet, we're going to make sure the correct date is in. So 1st of June 2026, I've used as being the day's date. What we can see then is it's worked because there's a transaction or a balance showing in the capital and reserve account for dividends paid, £500. Okay, so we know that the dividends worked, which is good. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to show you what the issue is and how we need to rectify it to make sure that the accounts don't still show dividends paid when we go into the next year. So what we'll do then is we'll click in a date for the following reporting year. Okay, so with this company, we're assuming that the reporting year ends the 31st of March. So we paid the dividends in June 2026, and they were for the accounting period which ended in March 2026. And what we can see there is that there's still, as we go into the next financial year, so the one that ends in 2028, we can still see that the dividends paid is still showing as a balance in the balance sheet. So that's something we need to rectify. So I'll show you how to do that now. So we're going to have to do an additional manual journal. So click on accounting, manual journals, new journal. We're going to call it dividend journal. And the date needs to be the first day of the reporting period after the dividend was paid. So we paid it in June 2026. So the 1st of April 2027 is the right date for us. So that's the first day of the reporting period after the dividend was paid. And what we'll do is, that'll copy down the description. And there's two accounting codes we need to use. The first one is dividend. So this is basically to remove that dividend balance on the balance sheet. And the next one is retained earnings. So basically, dividends are paid from retained earnings within the company. So if there isn't retained earnings, you can't then pay a dividend. So what we need to do is basically cancel out that dividends paid transaction and reduce the amount of retained earnings because we've paid some of that out as a dividend. Remember, it's £500 that we paid out as dividends. So let's show you how to cancel out the dividend. So it's two different transactions. Again, it'll be a debit and a corresponding credit. So in this case, we're going to put in the £500 for dividend paid and £500 for retained earnings. Remember last time with the dividend paid last time, we used a debit. So this time to cancel it out, we use a credit. So it's going to be £500 there. And then £500 as a debit in retained earnings, which is then going to reduce our amount of retained earnings. So what we're going to do now is click post. What we'll do now is go on the balance sheet and just check it's worked. So accounting, balance sheet. Okay, so just check it's worked. So we can see that at the end of the financial reporting period that ended the 31st of March 2027, remember we paid out the dividend in that reporting period. We can still see the dividends paid showing there. And if we click to the following day, which is the start of the next reporting period, let's do that now. What we can see is the dividend transaction balance has been removed and the retained earnings have been adjusted accordingly. So I'll just show you again to make sure you can see it. So you've got dividends paid there showing as negative 500, retained earnings 4,931. We flick to the next day. Yeah, you can see there retained earnings has been reduced and the dividend transaction is gone. So there you are then. That's a quick demonstration on how to process dividends in Xero.
Hope you found this video useful. If so, please remember to like and subscribe for more similar content.